Chapter 1336. A Jew had a small face, and was about to walk towards one of the Special Forces soldiers. She heard a roar. As the earth and mountains shook, even the surrounding fog had a fundamental change. Not only the Special Forces soldier, but even the demon hidden in the Special Forces soldier's heart could not help but raise his head and look behind him. At this moment, all the animals in the surroundings could not help but widen their eyes. They looked at the huge back that was coming down from the sky and paused for a moment. The animals in the east seemed to have encountered a major disaster. All of them ran towards them. The leaders were actually a tiger and a lion. The problem was that the soldiers had never seen a tiger and a lion so afraid of something before. It was not an earthquake, nor was it a landslide, but it was the gradually appearing black shadow that made the entire mountain look different. Some people said that once the sky devouring appeared, all the beasts retreated. None of the beasts dared to approach it. This was the power of an ancient divine beast. No one could stop it. It was even more difficult to deal with than the fire Qilin, because in its mind other than eating it was still eating. It ate whatever it saw, that was its specialty. As the clouds and mist surged, it appeared in front of everyone just like that. Because it was too sudden, no one had time to react. A Jew was caught by it with a bow, along with all those things. Compared to its huge body, the sky devouring's movements were fast and agile. In almost the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the clouds and mist again. When this wave of beast tide passed, people realized that a Jew, who was originally standing in front of them, had actually disappeared. It was just an instant. Bai Zhuan's face instantly turned cold. That kind of gaze was as if it had been penetrated by ice. Anyone could see that the moment a Jew disappeared, his back shook violently, and he almost couldn't stand still. But very soon he laughed. That kind of laugh was ice-cold from the bones, making people shudder. Li Heila's first reaction was to reach out and press his hand down. We still don't know what happened to a Jew. Don't be like this. Like what? Bai Zhuan raised his eyebrows. The viciousness that was revealed was simply not his usual self. Get out of the way. Li Heilu held his hand and could not help but shout. Bai Zhuan, don't forget that other than a Jew's concern, you are also a soldier. Get out of the way. Bai could only move his fingers. Following his bone-chilling voice, he raised the gun in his hand with a whoosh. Li Heila's voice immediately stopped. He looked at Bai Zhuan's cold side profile, and could not help but feel his heart skip a beat. Without a Jew, he really did not know what Bai Zhuan would become like. At this moment, a Jew was rolling along with Tunshin's movements. She stretched out her hand and grabbed the heaven-devouring beast's ear. She had no intention of letting go, because once she did, it was very likely that she would slip down and be crushed by the heaven-devouring beast. Because of this angle, she was able to see more clearly. It turned out that Buddha Wooly wasn't lying. Devouring heaven really did eat a lot. She had never seen the heaven-devouring beast before. However, she would occasionally hear her brothers mention it. According to her big brother, the heaven-devouring beast should have been raised by her father. But if it was raised by her father, why would it appear here? Could it be that this was the intersection of the three realms, and the heaven-devouring beast had come out of the demon world? After a Jew thought it through, she subconsciously touched her head. Little White was gone. Could it be that it was eaten by the heaven-devouring beast? If it was really eaten by the heaven-devouring beast, she had to make it spit it out. However, Little White would also grow bigger. According to the current situation, it didn't seem like it was eaten by the heaven-devouring beast. As long as it wasn't eaten, it was fine. A Jew leaned over to avoid the flying wood. The heaven-devouring beast suddenly stopped, and then its big claws slapped the water surface. Bang! 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 Many fish jumped out of the river. The heaven-devouring beast bent down and picked one up. As if it realized that there was something on its ear, it shook its head left and right. After a while it shook a Jew off. The heaven-devouring beast looked at the little person in front of it, and touched her with the tip of its claws. What a familiar feeling. For some reason, the heaven-devouring beast, which had always eaten whatever it saw, actually only looked at a Jew like that, and did not eat her. Although a Jew was not short, she was very petite in front of the heaven-devouring beast. Her long black hair hung straight down to her waist, and her small face was also full of vigor. She did not show any signs of being scared at all. In the thick fog, that scene looked extremely mysterious, like a scene from a comic book. A young girl with black hair stood in front of a huge divine beast. The human and the beast looked at each other peacefully. Even the wind became gentler bit by bit. The petals that had been raised earlier also fell beside Aju's feet. There was always a hazy sense of beauty when it looked like this. Aju opened her mouth and even stretched out her hand. It was very cute. Hello, heaven-devouring beast. I am Aju by Legio. Hearing the word by Legio, the heaven-devouring beast's eyes also changed. It was as if it had remembered something, but it was not very clear. However, this did not affect the heaven-devouring beast from expressing its goodwill. It was clearly a divine beast, but its movements looked a little steady. One of its claws slapped the surface of the water again. This time, the fish did not enter its stomach, but directly jumped in front of Aju. The heaven-devouring beast. Oh no! It should be said that the little seventh prince's way of making friends had never changed since ancient times. He would invite whoever he liked to eat. Previously, when he met Hellion Vivian, he did the same. However, at that time, he called Hellion Vivian third sister-in-law. And now, only the memories of ancient times remained in his mind. Many things had yet to be recovered. He did not even know that the person standing in front of him was the child of his third sister-in-law and his third brother. The heaven-devouring beast's claws stretched forward again, meaning that it wanted Aju to eat quickly. Fortunately, the person the heaven-devouring beast met was Aju, a foodie. If it had met someone else, they definitely would not have understood what it meant. Aju had a pair of round tiger eyes. Then, she bent down and touched the heaven-devouring beast's claws. She chanted Ba very seriously. I don't eat meat. If you have vegetarian food, I will eat it. Chapter 1337. Tunshin was a divine beast. It had 5 senses and knew people well. It could understand everything Aju said. When it heard that Aju wanted to eat vegetarian food, its thick claws held the trunk of the poplar tree beside it and shook it casually. Countless leaves fell from above. All of them fell in front of Aju's eyes, almost burying her. Then, it looked at Aju again and treated her in a very tiger-like manner. Aju looked at the leaves, and the little tiger's face was a little conflicted. Although this is vegetarian, the leaves of the poplar tree can't be eaten. Can't be eaten? Tunshin tilted its huge head. After all, in its heart, even a mountain could be swallowed if it was really hungry. How could desserts like the little leaf not be eaten? It was probably because the other party did not like it. The man and the beast began to look at each other again. For the sake of eating, they were also very hardworking. If Weiwei knew that the two of them were like this, she would definitely laugh out loud. When the big foodie met the little foodie, it was simply enough. Seeing that the little person in front of it was not moving anymore, it tilted its big head and thought seriously for a moment before lifting Aju up again. This time, Tunshin was very serious. It did not walk as fast as before. It looked very cautious. It was probably afraid that Aju would fall from its hands, or that something would cut Aju. Aju's round tiger eyes were stunned. She did not understand. Where was Tunshin taking her? It was also filled with fog. The problem was that on the other side, they were really afraid that Baijuan would do something, because he was really different from his usual self. The color of the surrounding fog made him even more cold and elegant. In the silence, his deep gaze was like a cold river under the moonlight, so cold that it made people tremble involuntarily. Most importantly, his muzzle was actually aimed at one of them. Master Bai, what do you want to do? Li Hailu was so anxious that even his expression changed. Not to mention the sledgehammer that Baijuan was aiming at with the muzzle of the gun. His lips were even paler. Captain. He had never thought that one day, the captain would point a gun at him. Li Hailu's eyes were red. Baijuan, wake up. Come out. Baijuan did not pay attention to Li Hailu. Instead, he looked at the sledgehammer with deep eyes and said something very inexplicable. Dechue's fingers paused. Captain? He really didn't understand what was going on. Devils were different from ghosts. If one was possessed by a ghost, one's body would belong to the ghost. However, after being possessed by a demon, the demon would hide in the person's heart. It would not immediately control the person's thoughts. Instead, it would devour the person bit by bit and demonize the person. So even the person possessed by the demon didn't know what was going on. However, Bai Juan's eyes were deep and cold. He still said, "Come out." At this time, Li Hailu also understood what he meant. However, how did Lord White know that the person possessed by the demon was De Chue? "Captain, what do I not understand? What do you mean by out?" Da Chui was the most loyal person among the few of them. Whether it was in treating Bai Juan or carrying out missions, he was the kind of person who did not talk much and worked hard. Bai Juan took a step forward. Li Hailu turned to the side to block. "Could it be that you made a mistake?" Bai Juan swept his gaze across his face. The muzzle of the gun did not move. The coldness in his eyes did not relax in the slightest. Instead, it was even colder and murderous. "Look at the shadow on the ground." Hearing this, the soldiers all lowered their heads. When their gazes swept past the soles of their feet, everyone was stunned. This was because everyone only had one shadow. Only De Chue's shadow was two shadows under the flashlight. How could a person have two shadows? In an instant, their hearts sank as they stared at De Chue in a daze. Even De Chue's face was deathly pale. This was because it was obvious that the demon who had just said those harsh words was in his body. The demon also froze for a moment. He did not expect that after the exorcist had been captured, the remaining humans would be so difficult to deal with. They had even found him, so he could not change people at the last minute. This was because no matter who he changed to, there would be two shadows. The demon raised his head and looked at Bai Juan's pair of cold eyes through De Chue's body. He had never met such a human before. How should he put it? The aura emitted by this person made him not want to get close to him. Just now, all his thoughts were on his prey, the young female exorcist. When he noticed Bai Juan now, he had already reached this point. However, "So what if you find me? That little exorcist has already been captured. Can you shoot at your companions? Can you bear to do this?" The demonized voice came from beside his ear. "Once you shoot, the first person you hit will be your teammate, and then me. Moreover, your human weapons are useless against me. You are simply stupid to the extreme. Then what about this?" With a swoosh, it was the same knife again. It was that knife again. Bai Juan cut his palm, and blood instantly dripped onto the ground. Not only the surrounding fog, but even the evil spirit that wanted to approach this side was also burned until it took a heavy step back. It was caught by a Jizz ghost slaughter. Other than Bai Juan, no one else's blood could reach the level of killing demons. When the demon saw this scene, its eyes flickered. The closer Bai Juan was, the stiffer it became. It knew that if it was nailed by such a weapon, it would not have the slightest chance of survival. The blood of justice was simply one of the few variables in the world. But even so, demons were cunning. Every word could hit the most vulnerable part of the human heart. "So in order to kill me, you did not hesitate to drag one of your teammates down with you, right? I don't care. I am a demon. One day, I will be able to rise from the ashes. But for your own sake, you want to kill your teammate. You humans are really selfish." No one was willing to point a knife at their teammate. If there was any other way, Bai Juan would not have done this. Whether it was Li Hailu or the soldiers, they were all very clear. Even De Chue himself did not beg for mercy. Instead, he looked at Bai Juan with a determined expression. This might be the unique belief of the special forces. Every one of them was looking at Bai Juan, waiting for him to make a decision. Bai Juan's eyes met De Chue's. "I would rather my teammate die under the muzzle of my gun than let him become a walking corpse. He has no feelings, no thoughts, and is controlled by something as a killing puppet. Moreover, my knife technique might be able to help him save his life. But if he is controlled by you, his soul will be shattered in the end. Even after death, he will not be able to reincarnate. This choice is not that difficult." Chapter 1338. And we always remember what we are here for this time. After hearing this, Sledgehammer's eyes moved, and he stood even straighter. If it was an ordinary person, they might be afraid of death, or have all kinds of despicable thoughts that the demon would take advantage of and control them. However, none of the people standing here were ordinary people. They were wearing military uniforms, and carrying combat bags on their backs. Even their faces were covered in green. The only time they were wearing military uniforms was numbered. In so many foreign missions, they couldn't even reveal their identities. Now that foreign enemies had invaded, they would kill them no matter how far away they were. This was their belief. Even if this belief would cost them their lives, they would still continue to walk forward. From the day he joined the army, Sledgehammer did not know about others. He raised his hand and swore that he would protect this land. The more places they walked, the more they could understand. As long as they could let their loved ones wake up the next day to see a busy crowd, the slowly rising sun, and the warm smiling faces beside them, not the smoke of war. Even if they did not have a corpse left, they still had to complete the mission. Every time, as long as the captain stood there, Sledgehammer felt that his belief would not be defeated. It was the same now. The demon did not understand why the other party suddenly rejected him even more. He was only desperately trying to find the darkest place in this person's heart. He did not see Bai Juan use a military gesture to Sledgehammer. Sledgehammer paused for a moment, and then nodded slightly. The demon was still trying his best to induce Sledgehammer's most despicable side. Bai Juan raised the blade. The demon did not expect that someone would be so ruthless. Moreover, this was the first time he had encountered such a possessed person. The firmness in his heart was too difficult for him to shake. At that moment, the demon knew that he had to retreat quickly. Otherwise, once the blood of justice touched him, he would have no chance of escaping. Just when Bai Juan's blade was a few inches away from Sledgehammer, the demon quickly flashed out. Bai Juan retracted, and the blade fell into his palm. By the time the demon reacted, it was already too late. It turned out that Bai Juan did not intend to stab Sledgehammer from the beginning. What he wanted to do was to force the demon out. The demon thought that he was cunning, but at that moment, he was also stunned. So much blood flowed out from Bai Juan's palm, but his handsome side profile did not change at all. Other than the pale color of his lips, his eyes were cold. If it weren't for you, a Jew wouldn't have been in danger. Demon, no matter what you are, I will crush you with my own hands. That kind of killing intent made the demon's scalp numb. Not to mention that hot blood of justice. When the evil demon saw this, he went into hiding. If he didn't possess someone else's body, this man couldn't do anything to him. As a demon, he could completely blend into the surrounding fog. No matter how fierce and powerful this man was, he didn't have the heaven's eye and couldn't see him at all. At the end of the day, he was afraid of men. Men couldn't crush him. He was still so carefree and happy. However, just as the evil demon was feeling smug, a tall and slender figure slowly walked out of the clouds for the readers. Second update. Good night, moi. Chapter 1339. There was a swoosh. Many nightingales soared up in the surroundings. Large patches of black feathers fluttered down. 3,000 feet below, prosperity filled the air. It was said that that was the beginning of all evil. With every step the man took, black feathers would fall. A well-ironed handmade suit outlined his appearance. He was so noble that it was almost bewitching. There was fog all around, but there were no traces on the man's body. Instead, his face looked even more hazy and clean. His hands were wrapped in pure black gloves along the lines, but his hair was silver. It draped behind him and reached his waist. He was like a person who had walked out of a comic. He was noble, ascetic, and extraordinarily handsome. There seemed to be countless clouds churning behind him. No one could see clearly what was hidden in the clouds. However, the problem soldiers did not know. But it did not mean that the demon did not know. The demon had already begun to retreat, but he found that his body did not listen to any of his orders. It was submission and fear that burst out from the depths of his blood. He did not even dare to look up at the man's eyes, let alone the clouds behind the man that were like an abyss of hell. No one knew better than a demon what that was. The devil opened his mouth, and his body was completely exposed under the influence of the man's demonic nature. His entire face was pale, and his lips trembled as he looked at the man. Even his tone became unstable. Your Highness, Your Highness? After the problem soldiers heard this title, they looked at each other. This was not ancient times, so why was he called Your Highness? It was definitely not a code name like theirs, because it was obvious that they had watched the demon transform into a human form from wisps of black smoke. But now, that demon was actually begging for mercy and calling a man your highness. That man was clearly wearing modern clothes, and the windbreaker on the outside was a brand they recognized. He was simply a business elite who had just attended an evening ball. They were almost certain that he was a human. But thinking about it carefully, in such a wilderness, how did this man come here? It was impossible for him to pass through the entire jungle and still have his suit so spotless. Moreover, those nightingales just now were even more strange. In the past, the problem legions had always been materialists and did not believe in any gods or ghosts. However, ever since they carried out these missions, the problem armies realized that people who dressed like humans were not necessarily humans, just like the soul they had just encountered. People who didn't know would think that they were from the sales department. White shirts and suit pants. They were really no different from humans. Furthermore, that demon was so respectful to him. Could it be that they were from the same batch? The soldiers were worried as they raised the guns in their hands. One demon was already very difficult to deal with. With another one, they could only fight to the death. However, what they did not expect was that just as they raised their hands, Lord Bai turned to the side and pressed down on their wrists. His palm was still dripping with blood. That handsome face that had lost too much blood actually looked colder than usual. His voice was also deep, and his eyes were dark and deep. Don't shoot. We're on the same side. Chapter 1340. One of them? The soldiers looked at each other in dismay. If he was one of them, why had they never seen this man before? Could it be that he was also from the Tang sect? No, it didn't seem like it. The people from the Tang sect were very unique. Even if they didn't wear military uniforms, they would still hold machine guns in their hands. But this man didn't have anything in his hands. He looked like a young master from an aristocratic family. His entire body was noble and cold. When he swept his gaze across the demon in front of him, it didn't seem like he was looking at a foreign species. The corners of his mouth even had a mocking expression, as if he was looking at an ant. This man, who exactly was he? This was the question in everyone's mind except for Li Hailu. It's him. Li Hailu seemed to be unable to hold it in anymore. His eyes shook violently. Baijuan, that's him, right? Baligaju. Little Aju's father, that business legend. He appeared once at your birthday party. But why do I feel that he is no different from back then? It's as if he has never aged. After realizing this problem, Li Hailu really felt that time seemed to have stopped on the man's face. No matter how handsome he looked at that time, he still looked the same now. However, after the passage of time, the man looked even more mature. Even so, Li Hailu still felt that the aura emitted from his body was still indescribably violent. If a person looked like this 5 years ago, he still looked like this now. Could he be a human? Li Hailu suddenly seemed to have understood something. He turned his head to look at Baijuan. Could it be that a Jew is also? A Jew is not. Baijuan seemed to have guessed his thoughts. He opened his mouth to interrupt him, his eyes dark. A Jew is a Buddha, the reincarnation of a true Buddha. Li Hailu was shocked. But you and a Jew, the two of you already knew. Is it important what a Jew is? Baijuan looked at him, his eyes pitch black. To me, she is just her. Li Hailu was shocked again. He had always known Master Bai's deep feelings for a Jew, but only Master Bai could gather the reincarnation of a true Buddha at home. Most importantly, a Jew's father was obviously not a human. As if sensing Li Hailu's gaze, the man standing not far away lifted his eyelids indifferently. The floating clouds also churned in all directions. Rather than saying that Baligaju was looking at Li Hailu, it would be better to say that he was looking at Baijuan. Where is 9? A graceful voice slowly flowed out. These 4 words were spoken in a low and indifferent tone, as if they belonged to him. It was as if no matter what the surroundings were like, he would always be like this, even if he was stepping on a pool of blood. That's right. Baligaju stomped down with 1 foot, and the demon fell to the ground. Black blood flowed out of the wound. The demon could no longer describe the feeling in his heart. Why would His Highness, who had not come to the 3 realms for a long time, appear here? The demon did not dare to ask. He could only curl up his body. He was in so much pain that he broke out in cold sweat. He did not even have the strength to raise his hand. He greedily begged for mercy. Your Highness, it was these humans who did not know the rules and barged into the three realms. I did not deliberately cause trouble. Moreover, I did not have any ideas about anyone. Really, I swear to God. Hearing this, Baligaju curled his lips into a smile. But in that instant, everyone could only feel an overwhelming sense of malevolence and ruthlessness. Chapter 1341. Swear to the heavens. Baligaju used his strength to lean to the left, but it did not affect his handsomeness at all. Are you mocking my intelligence? Since when did demons swear to the heavens? The demon was so scared that his entire body trembled. No, Your Highness, I didn't mean that. Do you know why I am here? Baligaju's indifferent voice interrupted his words. Then he bent down. The corners of his mouth were still curled up, but his black-gloved fingers pinched the demon's neck. It's because you have designs on my daughter. You are really not afraid of death. Do you really think that every exorcist in the world is so delicious? When the demon heard this last sentence, his eyes widened. What he regretted the most now was that he had targeted such a group of people. So that little exorcist was His Highness' daughter. How should I tear you apart? Baligaju said as he used his strength. The demon could even feel the immense chill that overflowed from those eyes. His scalp was going numb. He wanted to escape, but he couldn't escape at all. His entire body felt as if it had been burned by fireworks. The demon knew that it was a punishment that would burn his bones and scatter his ashes. Right now, he wished that he could go back in time and not have any designs on the little exorcist. Even if he did, it would be better for the humans to deal with him than to be reduced to ashes. The demon raised his head and let out a final scream. Then he turned into a pool of black water. The soldiers saw this scene with their own eyes. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Such a death could not be explained by science at all. And this man, was he really Aju's father? The legendary King Seoju? Why was he so young? His skin was also too good. It was as if he was not a person of their age. After dealing with the demon, Baligaju stretched out his hand and took off the glove that had just touched the demon. He threw it on the pool of black blood. His expression was indifferent, and his eyes were also indifferent. He turned to the side and sized up Baijuan. Then, when he saw the blood on the ground, he frowned. Subconsciously, as a pure demon, he didn't like the smell of justice. Therefore, Baligaju did not move forward. Instead, he stopped and asked again, "Where is Aju?" Baijuan's fingers tightened, and his internal organs were in pain. She was taken away. Baligaju did not think that with such a pure young aura, anyone could hurt his daughter. Moreover, this human from the Bai family was not a soft-footed shrimp. Baijuan lowered his head. A breeze blew over, and the pieces of hair that fell down revealed a hint of loneliness. I'm not strong enough. The one who caught her was Tunshin. If I had reacted a little faster. Are you sure it's Tunshin who captured Aju? Baligaju interrupted Baijuan's words with a very indifferent expression. His silver hair fluttered in the wind, and his entire body was filled with asceticism. Baijuan's gaze deepened, but he stood tall and straight. I'm sure. Then it's fine. Baligaju's voice revealed a hint of nonchalance and nobility. When two foodies get together, the unlucky ones are usually others. The soldiers were speechless. Was it that simple? Even if Aju was a foodie, compared to a divine beast like Tunshin, she was not on the same level. Chapter 1342. Aju, who was sitting on the back of the sky-devouring tiger, sneezed heavily. Because there was too much fog around her, her reaction also slowed down. She touched the bridge of her nose and lowered her head to ask, "Sky-devouring tiger, where are you taking me?" The sky-devouring tiger arched its huge head toward the east with vigor. Then, it took a step forward, and the entire river trembled a little. The clouds and fog dispersed, and Aju finally saw clearly where the sky-devouring tiger was taking her to. It was the entrance of a cave. There were a few people standing at the entrance. Those people were all unfamiliar faces, and did not belong to China. Moreover, each of them had something painted on their faces and tattoos on their arms. The most extravagant thing was that each of them had white powder on their hands. This was a group of drug addicts. To be more precise, This was a group of drug traffickers. This should be the ultimate goal of their mission. Not only were they drug traffickers, but they also kidnapped archaeologists and wanted to dig out the treasures from China. When Aju thought of this, her small face puffed up like a bun. She looked very much like an angry little monk, but her skin was white and tender and beautiful. Did they think that China was a place where they could come and go as they pleased? Aju also saw the news. This group of desperados even called them Chinese dogs. Although she had never discriminated against dogs, releasing such words internationally clearly showed that she looked down on people. Little brother had once said that the reason why he put on that military uniform and carried out all kinds of overseas missions was very simple. Even if we Chinese leave the door of China and go outside, we should at least be respected. Perhaps some public opinion was not wrong. China was still a developing country, and there were some things that it was indeed very backward. However, these had nothing to do with ordinary citizens. Since they went out clean, they had to let them come back safely. This was the accusation of being a soldier. They would not admit to those things that were planted on ordinary citizens. Their innocence would be given to them, and their dignity would also be left to them. They absolutely could not tolerate anyone. Within the borders of China, they could kill whoever they wanted. They could kidnap whoever they wanted. A Jew could not kill anyone before she became an adult. She could only kill demons and ghosts. Otherwise, he would have raised his gun and fired at them. It was precisely because of this concern that a Jew became smart. She signaled for Tunshin to lower its body with her, and then had it create a layer of fog. She took out her Buddha beads and planned to summon a group of evil spirits. She wanted them to lure away the gunfire on the periphery, while she dealt with the people inside. If it wasn't for the fact that the sky-devouring beast was too big, it would have been able to solve everything directly. A Jew had not forgotten that there were still a few archaeology professors and university students not far away. If the sky-devouring beast stepped down, the entire cave might collapse. The sky-devouring beast did not understand why the little one it brought over wanted it to squat down. It originally wanted to shake the mountain and let the little one eat something she could eat. It had seen before that the things here could be eaten by the humans. Since those humans could eat it, so could the little one. Unfortunately, the little one didn't seem to want it to do anything. The sky-devouring beast had a regretful look on its face. It patted its paws and stuffed 2 fishes into its mouth. It would wait for a while. When the little one wanted to eat, it would go and shake that mountain. He clenched his fist. Chapter 1343. If the Fire Qilin knew about this, it would definitely ridicule it. Tunshin, is your mountain used to shake things to eat? We are both divine beasts. Can you show some of your dignity as a divine beast? Why do you only think about eating all day? Moreover, you are a prince. In fact, if eunuch Shangsuan knew about this, he would not be surprised at all. The 7th prince even ate the goldfish in the fish pond, let alone shaking a mountain for food. This was completely possible. The man and the beast looked at each other in the eyes of a tiger. Tunshin wanted to shake the people inside out for a Jew to eat. A Jew thought that she must save the professors. Although the ultimate goal of the 2 foodies was different, they still had to get the people out first. A Jew chanted Umitba. She thought that in less than 3 seconds, her ghost would definitely appear. But what she did not expect was that after 3 minutes, the 2 ghosts were still nowhere to be seen. A Jew frowned and chanted Umitba again, but there was still no ghost. These 2 ghosts were caught by her brother and had a contract with them. No ghost dared to resist her brother's demonic nature, unless there was a greater demonic nature than her brother. Could it be that this was the border of the 3 realms, so she could not summon them if they were far away? A Jew guessed and shook her Buddha beads. It seemed that she could only think of other ways. Without those 2 ghosts as a catalyst, the other ghosts would not come over. She could not let Tunshin out. Although the bullets did not have any effect on Tunshin, it still hurt when they hit its body. She had to get rid of their firearms first. A Jew narrowed her round eyes and suddenly thought of a way. Although she did not carry a bag or have a gun on her, Tunshin got a bunch of fish. She could let Tunshin use the fish to bury them all, just like how she had just been buried by the leaves. With this thought in mind, a Jew turned her head and said to Tunshin, "Put all the fish on their heads." All of them? Tunshin usually would not share its food with others, especially the people standing outside the mountain. It would only want to slap them to death with its claws. But even the little one said so. It could not refuse. Anyway, the fish he caught this time were all for the little one. Since the little one said to throw them away, then he would just throw them away. The sky-devouring beast exerted force with its right claw, lifting the pile of fish and throwing it over. It wasn't a small number like a dozen fish, but a large number of fish suddenly fell from the top of his head like a storm. The nearly 10 foreign criminals guarding outside the cave didn't know what had happened. They raised their heads and looked above their heads. Their mouths were wide open, and their faces were filled with astonishment and astonishment. Actually, it was true. Even foreigners would only see hailstones falling from the sky. They had never seen fish falling from the sky. Because the fish were raised wild in the deep pool of spring water, they were much fatter than the fish at home. They were long and big, and they were all alive and kicking. As long as one fell, it could cover a face, not to mention a large number of fish falling down. To be honest, a few of the criminals were already dizzy from the impact. They didn't even have the chance to open fire. After a few loud bangs, they were buried by the shoals of fish. They were still desperately struggling with their hands outstretched. Then, they saw a huge creature carrying a young girl slowly walking over. Chapter 1344. The girl was still wearing the military uniform of the Chinese Special Forces. The criminal's first reaction was to shoot. But when the fish fell from the sky just now, the guns in their hands had already been shot away. There were fish all around them, and their bodies were piled up there. Even moving was difficult. The most important thing was, what exactly was this giant thing? Could there be such a huge animal in the world? Everyone's eyes were filled with shock and fear. If they had guns in their hands, they could have shot at the huge creature's vital points. But now, although these outlaws were more ferocious than ordinary people, and were not afraid of fierce beasts, the sky-devouring beast was different. With the sky-devouring beast standing there, not to mention humans, even wild beasts would want to retreat. The criminal's legs were stiff from fear. The first to react was the person closest to the cave. He struggled desperately in the pile of fish, wanting to return to the cave. That scene was like an apocalyptic disaster. A Jew was about to enter. At this moment, the onmyoji in the cave suddenly narrowed his eyes. There's movement outside. The reason why this group of criminals was able to reach this cave safely and did not lose their lives at the intersection of the three realms was because there was such a onmyoji guiding them. In fact, the identity of this onmyoji was not simple. He was a Japanese. When they invaded China, they knew about such an ancient tomb. The secrets of the ancient tomb were hidden in a black painting scroll. It was brought back to Japan by his ancestor. All these years, he had been gathering the wishes of his ancestor and finding many professionals to solve the secrets of the tomb. Finally, he figured out the exact location of the ancient tomb. He was a onmyoji, and he believed in yin and yang the most. It was said that there was not only a huge diamond treasure here, but also the secret to eternal life. In order to obtain these and strengthen his country, the onmyoji found a group of famous international criminal organizations. In his heart, the Chinese would always be the sick men of East Asia, and those criminals would call them dogs. In fact, he also thought that it was true. He was very famous in the onmyoji world, and he had come into contact with many rich people in China. Some people fawned over him like a dog wagging its tail. Of course, when he came to this tomb, there were also people who advised him. The Chinese masters that he invited to study this tomb all said that this place was not to be entered. Not to be entered? What's wrong with that? Wasn't it just a mechanism created by the Chinese? The onmyoji had never cared about these things. They had even killed all the Chinese masters who knew about this secret. This time, he was able to successfully enter the border because he had funded an archaeology professor. So it was easy for him to avoid some checks. Therefore, Chinese people, as long as you give them a little benefit, they will sell a lot of things for it. He had seen too many Wuxia people living in China. They disliked everything about China. For the sake of a celebrity from a neighboring country, they would curse on the internet. They always felt that their country was inferior to others. When the Yin-Yang master saw this, he knew that he had to use Chinese people to enter the tomb. Therefore, he followed the archaeological team into the Earth region. Of course, in addition to those masters, his friends also warned him that the Wuxia soldiers were not to be trifled with. They told him to be careful. Chinese soldiers? Heck, compared to a onmyoji like him, he was nothing. Chapter 1345. All of you, take your guns and follow me out. Let's see what's going on outside. The onmyoji gave an order. The international criminal, who was working with him, also nodded at his subordinates. A group of desperados rushed out of the cave in groups. A Jew narrowed her tiger eyes and blocked the sky-devouring beast, letting it retreat first. In a Jew's heart, the sky-devouring beast was no different from those very cute animals. It was just a little bigger. Little Brown and Little Yellow, that she had raised in the jungle, were also very big. Other than loving meat, there was nothing wrong with them. As long as one's martial strength was greater than theirs, they would be obedient. Little Brown was a brown bear, and Little Yellow was a lioness. A Jew did not know that they were only obedient in front of her. It was not because they had good personalities and were willing to be obedient. It was because when this person punched them, they would faint for a long time. They had to be obedient. A Jew did not care about that. In her heart, the sky-devouring beast was already one of her own. It treated her to fish as soon as they met. Not every animal understood such etiquette. Therefore, a Jew told herself that she had to protect the sky-devouring beast. Ever since she entered the Tang sect, a Jew's speed had become even faster. Before the group of people could shoot, she had directly knocked out the sniper closest to her. However, there was one thing that was very disadvantageous to a Jew. A Jew could not kill people. She could only kill ghosts and demons. She could deal with one or two people with her fists. When there were more people, the power of the bullets would also increase. It could be said that a Jew's situation was not very good. If Bai Juan was here at this time, he would definitely not let his girl fall into such a situation. But now a Jew was alone. The onmyoji did not pay attention to a Jew. In his opinion, the other party was just a very ordinary Chinese soldier. There was nothing worth looking at. What he cared about was the sky-devouring beast that was protected behind the girl in camouflage. Others might not understand, but as a onmyoji, he naturally knew the three realms the best. Such a huge creature, such a figure, and its current position, it was clearly the ancient divine beast, the sky-devouring beast. The sky-devouring beast is here. That means that we are not far from the real tomb. The onmyoji shouted excitedly, his eyes filled with surprise. I didn't expect the legendary guardian beast to really be here. Kill that girl first, then surround the glutton Leviathan. Don't use bullets anymore, switch to knockout pills. It's said that a single bite of the heaven-devouring beast's flesh can allow one to live for over 100 years. We have to capture it alive. Yes. With the instructions of the onmyoji, the fugitives all aimed their guns at a Jew. The heaven-devouring beast seemed to have been provoked by something when it saw this scene. Its originally dark and watery eyes were dyed with a thick scarlet color bit by bit. Other than a Jew, no one else noticed the change in Tunshin's mood. That Japanese onmyoji had already revealed a greedy and murderous look in his eyes in order to obtain glutton. If one batch of cannons was not enough, he sent 2 batches. In order to deal with these people, a Jew had no way to appease the sky-devouring beast. The sky-devouring beast slowly straightened its huge body. Its scarlet eyes were cold to the extreme, like flowing blood. It had lost all goodwill and thought. Roar! Accompanied by such a loud sound, the entire mountain shook a little. The fish at the bottom of the river seemed to be boiling as they jumped out one after another. The international criminals were frightened by such a scene and wanted to retreat. The onmyoji snatched the weapon of one of them and ordered loudly, "Don't stop! Kill that girl and weaken the ability of the heaven-devouring beast. Quick!" He could tell at a glance that the change in the heaven-devouring beast seemed to be closely related to a Jew. Although the onmyoji was not sure what the relationship between this girl and the heaven-devouring beast was, her skills still made him feel worried. He had to leave and deal with her. In an instant, a Jew was surrounded by more than 20 gun muzzles. Just as they were about to pull the trigger, a gunshot suddenly rang out. The criminal closest to Aju was shot in the head. He did not even have the time to react. The other criminals quivered, and all pointed in the direction of the gunshot. A tall and slender figure stood there. She was wearing a pure black windbreaker, extremely short leather pants, and knee-length military boots. It was as if she was emitting a domineering aura, even from her bones. On her left shoulder was a long impact cannon. She stood on the rock with a faint smile. Her beautiful face, slightly curved thin lips, and waist-length chestnut hair fluttered in the sparks that filled the sky. She was full of arrogance, handsome and cool. These were not characteristics that a woman should have, but they were vividly displayed on her. Behind her was a group of men. Each of them had a unique appearance. The only thing they had in common was that each of them was holding a gun in their hands. This was a firearms organization, and it was a very standard firearms organization. Obviously, they were the ones who fired the shot just now. When Aju saw this scene, her figure paused. Her round tiger eyes were a little bright, but her expression was silly and cute. Mother, why was she here? With this thought in mind, the white cat jumped onto her head. Its tail swayed back and forth arrogantly, which was very in line with the nobility of the White Fin clan. Was it Xiaobai who found her mother? Aju smiled happily. If it wasn't for the wrong time, she would definitely have jumped into her mother's arms. She hadn't seen her mother for a long time. Under normal circumstances, her father liked to live a life with her mother. He always brought her mother to the demon world to see the mermaids. However, she heard from her elder brother that every time her father went to the demon world, there would be many people crying, and the mermaids would be forced to dance. In short, it was different from the mighty and domineering demon world that she had imagined. It was also possible that her father was too handsome. Wherever he went, he would make people feel inferior. That was how she understood it. However, Aju still did not understand why the mermaids without legs could dance. However, even with her mother in front of her, Aju did not forget that she wanted to protect the sky-devouring beast. She turned her body and kicked the person who wanted to shoot at the sky-devouring beast a meter away. If it was anyone else, the international criminals would definitely shoot wildly. But there was no international criminal who did not recognize the icons on their faces. Ghost. Boss, that's a ghost. One of the criminals grabbed their boss's clothes. Because he was too frightened, he could not stop speaking in a trembling voice. The boss's eyes darkened. He gritted his teeth fiercely and said with a fierce face, "You don't have to tell me. I know." Chapter 1346. Why would the ghost organization appear here? Didn't they already live in seclusion in the most central city of China? The boss's expression turned ugly, but he didn't dare to act rashly. He only shouted, "Mercenary queen. You saw it too. Our common enemy here is those wild beasts in the mountains. If you also want the things in this cave, I can give you half of them. How about it?" When the yin-yang master heard this, he turned his head to look at the internationally wanted criminal, Poison Fong. His voice was low, and he spoke in a foreign language. "Give her half." "Master, you don't understand. This ghost organization is really difficult to deal with. We don't have to be enemies with them at this time." Poison Fong knew how powerful Hellion Vivian was. At this point, he wouldn't go head-on with the other party. The yin-yang master sneered. "You're also afraid of Chinese people? I'll listen to you and shake hands with her first. When we're done hunting the glutton, we'll deal with her." The two of them had a good idea. However, before Poison Fong could open his mouth again, Hellion Weiwei opened her mouth in an indifferent voice. She leaped down from the boulder. Her movements were so dashing that even the windbreaker draped over her body fluttered in the wind. She was filled with hostility as she said, "Poison Fong, this cave originally belonged to my great Wuxia. Why are you giving me half of it? Heh, what right do you have to say such things?" Poison Fong's expression changed when he heard this. The yin-yang master spoke on his behalf. "From what you mean, you don't want to cooperate. Why should I cooperate with thieves like you who come to China to steal things?" Hellion Vivian casually raised her left hand. With a swoosh, everyone behind her raised the guns in their hands. The yin-yang master's expression darkened. Looks like you want to do this the hard way. Mister, from your accent you must be Japanese. The smile on the corner of Helian Weiwei's mouth seemed to have never faded. Let me tell you something. Don't think that you understand Wuxia, just because you understand some of our culture. This is not how the saying, you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit, is used. Yin-yang masters had always been known as masters. No one had ever been so arrogant before. And the other party was even a Chinese dog. There was no need for him to tolerate her. Poison Fong. The Onmyoji's eyes were sinister. You continue hunting the heaven devourer. I will deal with this woman. Poison Fong understood that he was going to do something. Since that was the case, he had nothing to worry about. When the two organizations met, it was a fight to begin with. However, Ghost's reputation in the underworld was too great, and he was afraid that it would be difficult to deal with her. Now there was nothing to worry about. Thinking of this, he signaled the large group of mercenaries behind him to follow him. Helian Vivian had been keeping an eye on him for a long time. Now that she saw him move, the muzzle of her gun followed him. Although there weren't many people in the Ghost organization, their explosive ability was unstoppable. Poison Fong didn't dare to act rashly anymore. He gave the Onmyoji a meaningful look, clearly saying, "Hurry up and do it." The Yin-yang master narrowed his eyes. With a push of his fingers, he took out 10 small wooden dolls. The eyes of the wooden dolls seemed to be alive as they tilted their heads. A ball of resentment that shouldn't have appeared here instantly soared. Once there was resentment at the intersection of the three realms, those who were supposed to reincarnate would be affected and come after hearing the news. In other words, this Onmyoji wanted to control the night of 100 ghosts. Once the ghosts had their own consciousness and were corroded by resentment, they wouldn't be controlled by the Onmyoji. In addition, this place was filled with demons. Using this spell in this place would definitely cause an unprecedented impact. Originally, a few Onmyoji in suits were walking in front with the dead spirits. Who would have thought that they would collectively go crazy? Not only did they break free from their chains, but some of them even became extremely ferocious and rushed to the same place. Not only the ghosts, but even the wild beasts and animals in the forest were affected and began to become irritable. It could be said that at the intersection of the three realms, the aura of chaos had always been victorious. Now, the Onmyoji's method would only stimulate those simple creatures. Only they could be used by him. He didn't care what the result would be. After all, this wasn't Japan but Wuxia. After receiving the news, the judge in the underworld hurriedly ran to their Highness office. Your Highness, it's not good. What's more pessimistic than my wife ignoring me in this world? The little king of hell had now grown into the big king of hell. His face was very handsome, but his eyes were filled with viciousness and bloodthirstiness that made people flinch. He supported the side of his face with one hand. His hair, which was as smooth as the night, was scattered around his body. The straight school uniform on his body made him feel out of place just by sitting there. After all, he was still stepping on a three-headed hellhound, and the surroundings were dark and scary. He was the only one who chuckled evilly. Infernal Judge, why don't you tell me about it? Your Highness, can you stop thinking about your wife? There's a reason why you were locked up by the King of Hell. Tell me, why did you learn to go to high school like a human? It's not completely unreasonable for you to be caught by the King of Hell. There's someone causing trouble in the underworld. When the little King of Hell heard this, he smiled. His attitude was very enthusiastic. Is that guy Shangxia here? Just nice, let him take all of you idiots away. At the same time, help me sign an autograph. Although I don't understand what's so good about that guy, my wife seems to like watching the movies he acts in. No, it's not young Master Shangxia. When the judge said this, his heart ached. Why is it that after thousands of years, their little highness's character of siding with outsiders hasn't changed at all? The little King of Hell tapped the side of his face with his slender fingers. He was already in the appearance of a teenager. If it's not Shangxia, who is it? It's a Yin-yang master. The judge finally finished reporting the matter. After confirming that the Yin-yang master's surname wasn't Pei or Pei, and it wasn't Helian Vivian, the little King of Hell laughed bloodthirstily. Do you think that I'm a place that you can casually enter? Judge, Yes. Go and get the key to the Xianbing iron chain in my hand. I'm going to destroy him. Yes. No, that's not right. The judge turned around and looked at his little master. Your Highness, are you really going to destroy him? Are you not using this opportunity to return to the human world? The King of Hell's son glanced at him and said, Trust me more, okay? Little master, you have too many bad records. Count yourself how many times you've lied to me. How do you want me to trust you? The judge lowered his head and muttered, You have to promise me that you'll teach that Yin-Yang master a lesson once you leave the underworld. The little King of Hell crossed his long legs and said casually, I promise. After teaching him a lesson, he'll look for his wife. What's there to be conflicted about? Chapter 1347. When the judge heard little King of Hell's words, he hesitated for a long time before opening the Xian ice iron chain. After all, the dignity of the underworld could not be lost. If someone was causing trouble above them, they had to take care of it. The Yin resentment array on the ground had already affected many ghosts and made them lose their nature. Even the sky-devouring beast had begun to lose its mind and become very aggressive. If this continued, the sky-devouring beast would very likely kill countless people. The Onmyoji did not care about this. He knew very well that there was a black coffin at the end of the mausoleum. Inside the coffin was the token that could command the divine beasts in the world. After dealing with all these people, he would go in to retrieve the token. At that time, not only would the treasure be his, even the sky-devouring beast would be his. The Onmyoji was very ambitious. Moreover, he was very confident that it would not be a problem for him to deal with this ghost organization with his yin-yang technique. Moreover, there were hundreds of ghosts at his beck and call. Who was he afraid of? The Japanese Onmyoji moved his fingers and chanted. The wooden dolls flew into the air under his control. The faces of each wooden doll were aimed at Hellion Vivian and the others. Poison Fong ran to the left proudly. He thought to himself that with the master covering for him, the ghost was finished this time. But what he didn't expect was that in the next second, Hellion Wei Wei followed closely behind and caught up with him. Poison Fong looked back and saw a large Buddha character appear in front of the girl in camouflage. It emitted a golden light and swept over with a dazzling momentum. Not only did the wooden dolls not have any substantial effect, but there were more or less cracks on them. Under the illumination of the Buddha's light, all of them opened their mouths. It was like the expression a person made before they died. At this moment, the Japanese Onmyoji's lips had started to turn pale. Even his eyes were shaking. He did not expect that the other party would have such a strong affinity with Buddha. Not only that, even her magic was above his. The Onmyoji did not believe that there was someone more powerful than him in Wuxia. He gritted his teeth and deepened the incantation. However, the difference in strength was too great. No matter what he did, it was useless. From the moment a Jew was born, it meant that all these wooden dolls would be shattered. No matter how deep one's resentment was, one would want to flee in fear upon encountering the Buddha's light. When the Japanese made wooden dolls, they would use the most realistic human eyes. It was said that only then would the dolls look more lifelike. In fact, it was because of the presence of human eyes that the endless resentment gathered. The wooden dolls all closed their eyes, which meant that the Yin-Yang master's magic would weaken. A Jew said to Hellion Vivian angrily, Mom, hurry up and save the sky-devouring beast. I'm here. The reason why Hellion Vivian was free to deal with Poison Fong's gunpowder attack was because she knew about the formation and didn't need to do it herself. The Japanese Onmyoji clenched his fists tightly. He didn't expect to meet an opponent in the industry this time. His eyes narrowed even more viciously, and even his face looked gloomier and scarier than usual. He had to admit that compared to the girl, his magic was like child's play. However, the Yin grudge formation had been formed, and there were 100 ghosts behind him to support him. Every dead spirit would listen to his orders and attack people. No matter how powerful the girl was, she would only become food for this group of malicious ghosts. Not only the girl, but everyone else could forget about escaping. Chapter 1348. But in the next second, something that puzzled the Japanese onmyoji happened. A slender figure walked over from the flourishing clouds formed by 100 ghosts. Not a single one of those ferocious ghosts dared to approach him. Something seemed to be singing in the distance. If one listened carefully, they would realize that it was a chant that would only appear when high-level demons appeared. Mermaids never open their mouths easily. The moment they opened their mouths, it was a heart-wrenching beauty. Some people said that the singing of mermaids was inauspicious and represented death, so very few people heard it. But those people didn't know why the singing of mermaids represented death. It was because they were using the god of songs to welcome the king of the demon world. The mermaids swimming on the other side of the river raised their heads and looked above the three realms. Black feathers slowly fell, and the blood-red datura bloomed with the most beautiful prosperity. Compared to the ghosts around them, that figure was tall and clean and seemed out of place. He was wearing black gloves on his hands, and he looked noble and cold. Just by walking over, some of the dead souls couldn't stand the temperature and turned into pools of black water. Who are you?" The Japanese onmyoji's voice began to tremble, and his eyes shook violently. He had never seen anyone with such an ability to move freely among 100 ghosts, as if he was entering and exiting a deserted place. The man's exquisitely sculpted face appeared from the fog. He was handsome and cold as he said in a mocking tone, "You don't deserve to know my name." His Highness. Hearing such a title, the Japanese onmyoji gripped the staff in his hand tightly. No matter who the other party was, he would be the one to win. Even if he wasn't afraid of ghosts, hundreds or thousands of them would be able to subdue him. Just as the Japanese onmyoji was thinking about this, a chuckle suddenly sounded in his ears. "If I knew you were here, I wouldn't have come up. Great demon, hurry up and fight. After you finish fighting and maintain the balance of the three realms, I can go and find my wife." "Ah, right, you should bring that fellow back to the demon world. Release it and let it slip away to eat. At the very least, you have to watch over it. Do you know that it has almost eaten all the fish in the entire Longjiang River? That's a place for the carps to jump through the dragon gate. Now the fish don't even dare to come here. What carps jumping through the dragon gate? What maintaining the peace of the three realms?" The more the Japanese onmyoji listened to that, the more cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Why did two of them appear instead of one person? Moreover, these two people were not afraid of ghosts. There were indeed two people. One was the little king of hell, and the other was Beligaju. A Jew was also a little stunned. She said with a small face, "Father." Beligaju glanced at her and reached out to rub his daughter's head. His voice was very calm. "Bai Zhuan and the others are behind me." A Jew nodded and took the opportunity to complain. "This person bullied mother just now." When Beligaju heard this, a cold light suddenly appeared in his deep and calm eyes. Even the ground under his feet seemed to have been frozen, emitting a faint mist. That kind of evil aura made the Japanese onmyoji increase the resentment in his hand. "All the ghosts in the world go and devour all of these living people. Only in this way will you be reborn forever." Chapter 1349. As the incantation fell, almost all the evil spirits on the ground were wailing. The Japanese onmyoji stood in the wind. Half of his face had been assimilated by the ghosts, and his eyes were filled with pride. He wanted to see how these people could resist him when the night of 100 ghosts descended. Those ghosts were all in the clouds, forming a huge black vortex. Each of them stretched out their arms as if they had just crawled out of hell. The sky completely darkened because of the appearance of the ghosts. Even Poison Fong and the others were affected by this energy. When they fired, they became even more fierce. Hellion Vivian waved her left hand, and countless Buddha's light spots covered the bodies of her brothers. That was to avoid the resentment. The most worrisome one was Tunshin. She didn't stop at all. She stepped on the leaves and jumped onto the shoulder of the berserk Tunshin. An ominous wind swept through the entire land. The Japanese onmyoji moved the wooden doll and pointed it at the man standing not far away from him. No matter who that person was, he could go to hell. However, at that moment, there was a wall of sound. Countless black feathers rose from the ground. The clouds behind the man seemed to gradually change color. It was as if something was surging behind him. At the beginning, the Japanese on Myoji didn't see what it was clearly. When he saw the great demons and great demons surging in the sky, he took a step back. What exactly was that? Before the Japanese on Myoji could regain his senses, in the eastern sky, a red azure dragon appeared. It rolled its dragon tail and hid behind the man. It wasn't just the azure dragon. In a ball of fire, the Chilean divine beast appeared out of thin air and sat on the right side of the man. Its outstretched claws could almost start a prairie fire. The Japanese on Myoji wasn't an ordinary person. He knew very well what the two divine beasts represented. But who could have such an ability? To make the two divine beasts appear at the same time. And to be so respectful to that person. The Japanese on Myoji suddenly recalled the information he had read about this tomb. The records had mentioned that the owner of the coffin had extraordinary abilities. Some people said that he was a demon, while others said that he was a god. However, until now, no one had actually verified it. He only knew that no matter how big the world was, no matter if it was gods or devils, only this person could command the masses of devils and possess the green dragon Chilean. Could it be that he was? How was that possible? A few thousand years had already passed. Shouldn't that person have died a long time ago? The Japanese on Myoji's fingers trembled at the thought of this. He wanted to hold on to his attack. However, what he did not expect was that the evil spirits that swarmed over all knelt on the ground as the man walked over. It was as if they were welcoming their king, trembling in fear and trepidation. The man was still smiling, and the curve of his mouth looked incomparably noble. The whistling north wind fluttered the black cape on his body. As he walked, his pitch-black eyes gradually turned blood-red. That was the sign of a demon. His hands were still wearing black gloves. His suit was well-ironed, but countless datura flowers bloomed under his feet. He stepped down in midair, as if this was not the human world, but the demon world. In the primal chaos, ghosts and devils alike, the appearance of this aura caused them to submit to it like never before. Their king had finally returned. Chapter 1350. The Japanese on Myoji could no longer move. His entire body froze on the spot. He watched as the evil spirits, who were supposed to be under his command, turned their heads, and each of them aimed their gazes at him. The Japanese on Myoji was so scared that his face turned pale. He kept begging for mercy. No, don't come over. However, it was already too late. A group of evil spirits surged forward, not even leaving his soul behind. He, who had mocked that there was no one in this land, was really torn into pieces. His wooden dolls were turned into a pile of debris when Baligaju approached. The Japanese on Myoji thought that he was invincible. Before he died, he only regretted that he had set his mind on this ancient tomb. However, it was already too late. The pain spread throughout his entire body, and even his spirit was completely devoured. He was the one who suffered the consequences of his own actions. When Bai Zhuan and the others arrived, this was the scene they saw. He did not look at the ghosts. Instead, he pulled a Zhu into his arms. His fingers trembled as they turned into thousands of words. His voice was still hoarse. Everyone else, listen up. Enter the cave and rescue the hostages. Bai Zhuan was always so righteous and awe-inspiring. His decision was not wrong. No matter how handsome a certain highness was, it was not suitable for him to save people. Who knows, he might even want to kill whoever he sees entering the mausoleum. After all, in his heart, there had never been anyone else. Now that Bai Zhuan was here, he gave up on the idea of killing them all. He lifted his eyes and looked at the irritable sky devouring not far away with his deep eyes. With a flash of his body, he disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. The little king of hell was still sitting on the rock, smiling evilly. With the Bai family and the great devil around, the matter was more or less settled. He took a look, and the mission was completed. Since that was the case, he could leave in a while. However, he did not know how much of Sky Devouring's consciousness was left. In the clouds, Hellion Vivian was still climbing on the back of Sky Devouring. At this moment, Sky Devouring was completely different from when it was carrying a Jew. Its eyes were filled with killing intent. It slapped its claws and knocked down one tree after another. It looked like it was about to head towards the mausoleum. In a sense, the heaven-devouring beast was indeed a tomb guardian beast. Anyone who approached its master's mausoleum would know that the only way was to die. In the eyes of the Tunshin, there was no distinction between Chinese and Japanese. The sound of gunfire was the trigger, and the curse of the Onmyoji completely made it lose its clarity. There was only one thought in its mind right now, and that was to kill all the humans who approached the tomb. In the beginning, Poison Fong and the others were still able to hold on. But after 100 ghosts retreated, every member of the ghost organization's gun skills were above theirs. More than half of the people around them had died. Poison Fong still wanted everyone to return to the mausoleum and take a few hostages. He didn't expect that his escape route had already been blocked. They all recognized the uniforms of the Chinese soldiers. The problematic unit and the ghost organization surrounded Poison Fong's group, forcing them to surrender. Without the attack of gunfire, Hellion Weiwei could finally free her hands and focus on stopping the sky-swallowing beast. Like a Jew, Hellion Vivian didn't want Tunshin to get hurt. However, it was obvious that Tunshin could no longer control itself. It shook its head and wanted to throw Hellion Vivian out. Hellion Vivian propped herself up with her arms and flipped around in a very handsome manner. With a turn of her body, she stood in front of Tunshin. The north wind blew at the hem of her clothes, and as it fluttered in the wind, she faced Tunshin's claws without the slightest intention of dodging. Her eyes were as clear as a spring, and her voice was not loud, but every word was heard clearly. Xiaoqi, it's me, your third sister-in-law. Chapter 1351. The sky-devouring beast tilted its head, and the figure of the person in front of it was reflected in its scarlet eyes. She was wearing a pure black windbreaker, extremely short leather pants, and knee-high military boots. Her long chestnut hair was blown recklessly by the wind. This scene felt very familiar to him. It seemed that a long time ago, there was also such a person. She always liked to curl her thin lips and wear a long ancient dress, but she didn't have the delicate air of a girl at all. She tilted her beautiful face, squatted on the ground, and made grilled fish for him. She would grill it while grilling it. The sky-devouring beast subconsciously retracted its claws, and its huge head shook twice. It was dizzy and couldn't grasp the main point at all. He didn't remember what she grumbled about. But in the deepest part of his heart, he seemed to remember. That was when he was the happiest, at that time. The sky-devouring beast lowered its eyes and looked at its oversized claws. He clearly didn't look like this. Then what should he look like? Why was it blurred? Little 7. Behind her, a deep and graceful voice sounded casually. The fog retreated, leaving behind continuous black feathers. With the appearance of the man, it seemed that they could hear Sanskrit songs coming from all directions. He stood in the middle, dressed in a suit, and behind him were thousands of demons. He raised his right hand with a black glove and said in a casual tone, "Come to third brother." In an instant, the images that flew in were like clips, appearing one after another in the sky-devouring beast's mind. He was holding a wooden stick to protect the academy. He was running behind his third sister-in-law with a meat bun in his mouth, and the goldfish raised by Imperial Grandfather were more delicious than anywhere else. Every time his third sister-in-law saw him, she said, "Honestly, little 7, don't you think your third brother is very shameless?" He took a bite of the grilled fish and nodded his head fiercely. Third brother has always been very shameless. If he was disobedient, he wouldn't let him eat meat. But there was one thing. He liked third brother's way of teaching. Third brother said that if he didn't like anyone, he would beat them up directly. In fact, he even recalled memories from an even more distant past. His master had fed him fish when he was still in his beast form. He was different from those people in Tiandao who wanted to hunt him down. He simply fed him. Later, his master fell from heaven and became a demon, and everything was reshuffled. Until now, Master appeared in front of him again. Or rather, Master had always been there. It was just that he had lost his consciousness and memories. Now the sky-devouring beast looked at its claws and shook its huge body. The blood in its eyes faded bit by bit. His footsteps towards Beligaju and Hellion Vivian also changed. As his body gradually shrank, a pair of ferocious black eyes appeared. There was not a single strand of hair on its round head. It was still holding half a fish in its mouth. Its cheeks were bulging, and its lotus-like calves were exposed outside of its white training clothes. It ran toward Bailey Jiaju and Helian Weiwei, opened its mouth and spat out the fish. The fish was not dead yet, and it rolled twice on the ground. Third brother, third sister-in-law. Little Seven didn't forget to stretch out his bald head, asking to be caressed. When Helian Vivian saw this, she smiled gently and hugged the little one, her eyes dark. Little Seven stood in Helian Vivian's arms with a domineering expression. Baligaju was standing next to him. At this moment, it was as if they had returned to 1,000 years ago. Peach blossoms for 3,000 miles, never parting. Chapter 1352. On this day, the Chinese border guards successfully rescued 21 hostages. Among them were university students and archaeology professors. Most importantly, they captured the international statistical criminal, Poison Fong, alive and completely crushed a huge drug trafficking organization. Not only that, but this operation also once again showed that China was not a country where anyone could come and go as they pleased. They had the most powerful armed forces and the most fearless special elites. They could be gentle and elegant, and peace was the priority. But don't forget, when necessary, they would also pick up guns and sweep through everything. This was the current China. And for a Jew, after carrying out the mission, the biggest gain was to see her 9th imperial uncle. Little Chi walked in front while a Jew told him where the food was delicious. After listening for a long time, Little Chi picked up a wooden stick angrily and said seriously, "There's no meat." This was indeed the case. In the end, a Jew directly made a bowl of noodles for her 7th imperial uncle and told him, "This is the greatest invention of humans in the field of food. You can eat whatever flavor you want. Braised, seafood, something fresh. I usually eat fresh vegetables." "Seafood? Is there fish in it?" Little Chi scratched his bald head angrily. A Jew shook her head and said, "There's no fish, but there's the taste of fish and shrimp." "Then I'll eat seafood." When the two foodies were together, there was no one else. The whole time they were discussing food. Originally, Bailey Shangxie and Helian Qingchen were in charge of bringing their 7th imperial uncle around to eat, drink, and play. Now when they saw the two of them, each of them could solve the problem with a bowl of instant noodles. There was no need to go anywhere else. The whole family stayed in the Bai family. That's right, it was indeed the Bai family. In Bailey Shangxie's words, he had to teach Bai Zhuan a lesson. This powerful human-shaped tool was their 7th imperial uncle. Once the tension appeared, he was not afraid that his family would go bankrupt. He would definitely not let it go. Little Chi and a Jew had been staying in the semi-open kitchen, waiting for Bai Zhuan to cook noodles for them. Life seemed to have returned to its original simplicity. 3,000 feet below, the demon world was a different path. The river flowed past, bustling as before. On the shore, a slender figure was sitting on the ground. He was holding something that looked like a secret book on how to court a wife. He smiled at the woman who gave him the garland. "What is this?" "The latest edition," Helian Vivian said straightforwardly. "You know, married life needs someone to maintain it. Otherwise, it will not be harmonious. This is the second part. I'm learning it now." Baligaju replied with an "oh," and the last syllable of the syllable went up casually. His black-gloved fingertips gently rubbed his thin lips, looking indescribably handsome and devilish. Then he reached out and pinched Helian Vivian's chin, lifting it up. "Madam, I want to ask you, what do you think is not harmonious in our married life? Am I asking you for too little?" As soon as he finished speaking, before Helian Vivian could react, Baligaju leaned over and kissed her lips. The demon's voice lightly slid past her ears. Everything was just like when they first met. There was such a person that you clearly knew. He was cold-blooded, heartless, and black-bellied. But you couldn't help but fall deeply for him. Once you fell for him, you fell for him for 1,000 years. Because he was the kind of person who would do everything he could to walk over and hug you even if there was a huge crowd in front of him. Conclusion. I don't know if everyone has heard of a saying, but ghosts actually exist in the world. It's just that the 6 paths are different. You and I are mortal eyes, so we can't see them. If you just moved to a new house, and found that the light bulb of the circuit security was always on and off, and that the TV would be turned on for no reason at night. If you often have nightmares and feel like there is a stone pressing down on your body when you sleep, you can't even move your fingers when you want to open your eyes. If your family or friends suddenly have a high fever and talk nonsense, eat with their hands, drink water without order, and can't find the cause of the illness at the hospital, welcome to the Hedonist Taobao shop. The owner of this shop was very handsome. Her name was Hellion Vivian. The end of the book. Beauties who supported the new book. Search Young Emperor's favorite. The National School hunk is a girl. Those who didn't support, thank you for accompanying me through The Hedonist Concubine. The Hedonist Concubine started her novel in March 2015, and it's now November 2016. After 1.5 years, the story can finally end. Originally, I wanted to end it beautifully, but other than being a little rushed, it's still passable. There were too many unforeseen factors. I'll write about the Hedonist Concubine's side story and drama on Young Emperor's favorite. The National School hunk is a girl from time to time, and it'll be on the public WeChat account as well. This way, even if someone reports my account, the Tieba will see it, so that everyone won't have any regrets. Finally, I'll leave a few words for the beauties who really like the Hedonist Concubine and didn't urge me to update or end. Don't be sad. The Hedonist Concubine has brought you happiness before. Who knows, I might start another evil book in the future. So be happy. If fate wills it, we'll meet again. Mwah hug. Thank you for accompanying me through so much. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.